Pope Francis once said, "No one can wash their hands without being, in some way, an accomplice to this crime against humanity."
Sexual exploitation.
Modern slavery.
Humans being turned into possessions.
Human trafficking is a crime where the victims remain unseen, unable to cry for help, and the most targeted population for this heinous crime is migrants. These people are often overlooked or put in situations where they are isolated, making them more susceptible to exploitation. Oftentimes, migrants arrive in a new country with no support system to lean on, which can lead to dangerous situations. These people leave their homes in search of a better life and more opportunities for themselves and their families.
I can get you a better job.
Don't you want to leave poverty?
Your children will live better over there.
Promises of a hopeful future, only to be pulled deeper into the abyss they sought to escape. There are approximately 258 million migrants all over the world, and although it is estimated that 20.9 million people are victims of human trafficking, the exact number of migrants affected by modern slavery is relatively unknown. Migrants slip through the cracks when it comes to protection because of the invisibility they are subjected to. There are many reasons to care about migrant trafficking, the most important reason being that migrant trafficking kills people. Whether it is drowning in the middle of the sea while on a packed raft, or dying of heat exhaustion while crossing dangerous terrain, those who aren't killed on the journey often find themselves vulnerable to exploitation, whether they are forced into intensive labor or involuntary prostitution. Another reason to care is the effect it has on national security. Migrant trafficking often undermines a country's exercise of national sovereignty. The illegal movement of large numbers of people into countries creates an issue for governments, as trafficked people's whereabouts, activities, and point of entrance into the country are unknown. Finally, migrant trafficking is one of the factors contributing to the rise in racism and discrimination we see today. People do not understand the urgency of this issue, so when they see a rise in unauthorized entries into a country, they fail to see their fellow man. Many of the migrants who are exploited through human trafficking do not take action against their abusers because of the constant fear of deportation. Traffickers will use the threat of deportation to maintain control of their victims, creating a cycle of fear and forcing victims back to their traffickers because of the perceived protection they provided.
They forced me to service up to 40 men a day.
I was 16 years old when I was sold by my uncle.
If I refused to work, they would not feed me.
Our inability to stop human trafficking represents one of the greatest policy failures of modern history. There is an international convention on human trafficking in migrants that has been approved and established by over 100 countries. We have multiple international organizations that have dedicated themselves to stopping migrant trafficking. Unimaginable amounts of money are spent on programs and initiatives to try to stop migrant trafficking each year. However, the number of victims affected by human trafficking worldwide continues to increase year after year. Although these acts work to end human trafficking, there's still much more that needs to be done. The life expectancy for victims of human trafficking while they are being exploited is only 7 years.
Time is of the essence, and simple things like informing yourself of human trafficking indicators and raising awareness can make a difference.
Call or write to your representatives and demand increased protection for migrants. Have them address the threat of deportation for migrants seeking redress from employment abuses.
The protections for migrants and other victims needs to be expanded to include protection for those fleeing repression. In order to alleviate the impact on children, child protection systems should be broadened to shield migrant children.
The capacity and opportunity for human traffickers could also be reduced by creating safe and accessible migration pathways. In order to avoid victims being lured into human trafficking by desperation, access to legitimate sources of work or finance along migration pathways and in destination countries should also be increased.